Okay, we're good to go.
We're all set, captions, everything?
Yeah.
All good? Okay. I make a motion, we call the meeting to order.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Coe?
Aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, is there any board member who has a conflict of interest or anything to disclose?
I do not.
I do not.
I do not.
Neither do
That was stereo. Okay. I do not.
Okay,
Open meeting?
sure. If anybody does join us in room or by video, please raise your hand to speak to the board. Please give your name and address, and I just say we all should work cooperatively and have a good meeting.
Okay, so the purpose of this meeting is to start our budget cycle. It is a workshop, and so actually any member of the public is always welcome to attend. The board may or may not entertain questions as we go along, but maybe, review them afterward or at the end. Again, it's a workshop. It's sort of to get us up and running for our budget cycle, because we need to have a draft version of our budget approved I believe it's in March. Am I correct? Yep. So with that being said, we also have it, let's see, it's 4, we have a hard stop at 5. And I know our treasurer has sort of things kind of lined up for us, queued up for us to kind of get us going and in the budget mood. Okay.
Well, welcome to our first budget meeting. There's so much excitement. So, as was brought up and we've learned and we adopted a multi-year financial and capital improvement plan. We'll start there. I gave the plan as was adopted last year. We've had, I want to say, 2 internal budget meetings to start kicking off there. So what we did is you'll see there's additional multi-year plan sheets that I provided you. So yes, you're seeing a second 24-25 and a 25-26 with some proposed changes for the multi-year plan.
Can you tell, so how do we know which is new and which is old?
Oh, it's pretty easy to see the new. The new 24-25 has a new status line. And it's at the end of your full multi-year plan.
I see, okay, at the end.
Yep, it's at the very end.
Okay, so let's just, you want to take a quick look?
It's right after you get to the end of the original multi-year plan, you have the new sheets so far. So I'm going to ask, though, that the board, through the whole process,
Oh, I see.
keep the multi-year original plan that was adopted last year, so we don't kill any more trees than we just did.
Yeah, so essentially hang on to what you've given us and then update by sheet as needed as we work through it. Okay,
I
that's
think that's the
helpful.
best way to handle this.
Yeah, it's a lot of paper.
It's a lot of paper.
Yeah.
And of course, as we go on, I will send you the Excel sheets as I have in the past, so you can play with the numbers yourself. Play a little budget time.
Okey-doke.
So in reviewing the original sheets, there were some items that we talked on the status. So that's why we have the status line as suggested. And some of these are capital projects, some of these just shifted to another year or couldn't be completed. So I figure we'll go through 24-25 and review those decisions in the internal budget committee's recommendation as to how to handle. Okay?
Mhm.
So,
Just for the record, just if you can, we call out the title of the page, just so people know, and so it's for the record of people.
yep,
Anybody's
we're on
listening.
24-25,
Yep.
the new sheet
Mhm.
with the status symbol, the status line. Okay. All right, we're on the number 1 item, which was the shop, the bathroom, and the generator. I guess generator can come off that because that was removed. We'll have to talk about that at some point. I'm sure Zach still needs that generator. But discussion was this project does not look like it'll be fulfilled in this budget year. Is there any disagreement to that? As much as we would like it. So I'm going to propose to the board that they make it a capital project. Capital projects can span more than one budget year. We did that with South End Wood. And in this case scenario, it makes sense because it is going to span more than one budget year. Financing for the project is in this year's budget. So we'll be able to take that financing, move it to the capital project. So then it's its own little world. So if it takes longer than it takes, it has the time to do it because it has no set.
Because it's identified, it's been approved, we're moving along, it just is spanning 2 budget years.
And it's a better way to handle those things. And
I think it's easier.
I think makes sense. There's certain things that aren't a capital
Okay, so-
project. But this one, with the cost of the project, the length of the project, it fully qualifies. So it'll be a recommendation for the board to
Okay.
make this its own capital project.
Question on that, will it become in the budget, in the final budget, a separate budget where you have a capital project budget in and of itself specific to each thing you put in there, like think roads, for example? So right now we have the primary, the primary budget, we have the sewer. Will we get a shop bathroom budget? How does that work?
No,
When
you
we
set
see-
that budget when you make it a capital project.
Okay.
The initial Southland Wood project, it had funding coming from a ban of $950,000. It had $100,000 being funded to it from general for the engineering, and that was to be refunded to general once we had the ban. So that became that budget for that project. So that's the budget for the lifetime of the project. If something changes, it would have to come back in front of the board for an amendment to that budget. That budget, unlike our general budget, spans whatever lifetime of the project. So it doesn't have to be redone every year. It does, should you review it, make sure where it stands, absolutely. But as we know with Southland Wood, there's been no movement outside of paying some bills.
But do you end up creating a separate account at the bank? Do you have it, when we look at the balance sheets?
You can do it differently. It does have its own balance sheets and it does show that way in our thing. It's like its own separate little world, but
Right.
it still interacts.
Because with sewer, it's easy to not double account, right? And when, this will be the first time we have a capital project before this board. So when we roll it into the final budget, if you could just remember to point out, here's this line item, here's where those funds are. Because when we set a fund balance policy of 25%, we wouldn't want those funds that were set aside for this capital project to be factored in on that. So it's just important to try to understand what's in it. and
But
how
there'll
it's-
be a separate sheet identifying everything.
Yes,
am
there
I
will
correct?
be. There's,
So it'll be, you'll transparently be able to see
Yep.
where the funds are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
and currently I can print you the Southland Wood balance sheets and all that, but nothing's happening because
Yeah.
it's stagnant right at the moment. So once it picks up, then you of course would see some things to review.
Okay.
So my recommendation with this project, as I said, maybe next meeting or the following, to move it to a capital project.
I mean, is that, any other thoughts on, I mean, I think it sort of makes, as a practical matter, I think it makes sense.
Yes, clearly
you know?
it's not going, it's long range, and so we're going to have to spread it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Justin, any, I mean, I mean, we could take the action now. I mean, I think it just, do you want to hold off? Do you want to go through everything and then see where we
Typically in
are?
workshops, we try to avoid.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
motions,
So we'll bring it back. We'll bring it back.
Unless it's an urgent matter, and if we're
Okay.
going to do it, I try not to.
So then let's put it
anything.
down as an action item though, please.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. You're absolutely.
Okay.
So we're also going to take out the generator with that? I don't know why it's not needed anymore, but it sounds like.
No, I think it is needed. I think it got labeled in there, but it was never addressed with this project.
It's actually a separate project.
It needs to be added to the multi-year plan, and that's something Zach can bring to the board.
In a separate year, we're not gonna,
Right, however soon he feels and the board can amend that.
that's fine. We might just want to amend the status then, that shop moves to capital project, generator removed for later scheduling.
That's exactly what I wrote down.
Okay, so Southland Wood, that again is moving to capital project. That is already a capital project. The board already declared it a capital project. So I think once they become a capital project, they come off the multi-year sheets.
Yeah, Lily.
Yes, I have a question, and we don't have to address it now, I just wanted to throw it out because it's in the front of my brain. At some point, Zach, have we examined at any time the opportunity to piggyback this project with anything else happening in the area as far as the paving materials? Sometimes if you bid together, maybe there's a project the state's doing or the county's doing, and that would reduce our costs because they're in the area anyway.
There's nothing.
There's nothing going on.
Yeah, and this kind of takes us out of us being able to piggyback on whatever the town has going on. 'Cause they do
I'm
most
just
of
wondering
it.
if there was opportunity to reduce the cost
Yeah,
in
you
that
looked
way.
into it.
Yeah, I mean, this project has been, kind
Yeah, I
of
know.
spanning over so many different years.
Yep.
It's really hard to lock in the timeframe of being able to piggyback off somebody else.
Is it too late to examine that opportunity? Is that what you're saying, the RFP?
I
hasn't gone out?
don't know of any other projects going on in the area currently. I can look into it to see if there is anything that we could piggyback on.
Okay,
But the likelihood is probably pretty slim.
I think because we're getting closer to an actual date,
Yeah.
that we might have information now to be able to examine that.
Okay, why not
opportunity.
just float a balloon, see if there's anything,
Yeah,
yeah, good idea.
Quick question too, so the 250 was for the shop bathroom / generator. I believe the shop bathroom is going to be 250.
Yeah.
So when the generator comes on, it's going to be an added cost to the
Yes,
capital.
it's gonna be in the cost.
Okay.
So real quick, I'm gonna jump a little bit ahead. We have a sheet in there, it's labeled capital projects, because the next question, when something comes off the sheet and goes to a capital project, we need to track where the capital projects are not lost. So to keep it in that multi-year plan, my suggestion is creating a capital project sheet so it can be tracked for the project's
How many
completion.
sheets in
Yeah,
are
how
we?
many sheets?
I know.
It's 5 paths.
5 paths,
Oh.
5?
5 paths, the new 24,
1, 2,
25.
Oh, the 6-year capital improvement plan?
No,
Yeah, it
one
says
more.
capital projects, right on top.
Oh, one more. Oh, you might still be on.
It only has the 2 items on it.
You can look at mine too. I just used that's why I look PDFs, I can search.
So
So wait a
here we
minute.
go. All right, now we're looking into it. Go back.
before that,
Keep
it's,
going.
it's after road maintenance, so it's all the way to the end?
Yeah, you know what, take your original.
Oh, got it.
Okay.
Plan.
From the last.
Oh, God.
there we
That's the
go.
best way to go.
All right, there you go,
Go back.
second from
All
last.
All right, second from the last.
I'm going to assume that it's far back.
All right, oh, there
All
we
right.
go, beautiful. That's
Okay,
Oh,
so
I
this is
see.
the new sheet I'm
Nice.
proposing for the,
Yep.
for a multi-year plan,
very nice.
so we can track the capital
Oh, nice.
projects.
That's
So
great.
anytime something's declared a capital project at
Love
the
it.
year end of the multi-year plan, it moves to here,
It's one spot,
so we know where to go for it. So
And we
it's not
remove-
lost.
and we remove generator.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that way it's not lost.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I like
Okay.
that, and also we can track it as projects move along.
So everybody's in agreement to keep the capital project.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
great.
Yes, I like that.
Okay. All right, continuing on. Any more questions on Southland Wood, though? That is
We're-
just still
yeah.
doing what it's doing.
It is- It's its own
Well, I
universe.
suppose I do have one question, and this speaks to your capital project. When you put it over the sheet, the cost there is higher than it is on this sheet, and it's because we had added expenses. So you're showing cost estimate 850, here on our original, it was 750.
Mhm.
Right,
It
so-
was 750, and there was, I think, 100,000 for the engineering.
Yeah, so we have that coming out of fund balance,
Mhm.
and the original amounts hold true. So there are small updates that can occur when it floats over the capital. Okay, great. Thank you.
But that helps you see it.
And I did
Yeah.
verify with our bonding attorney and everybody that the bond resolution the board did last year at this time is still good.
Oh,
Great.
So
Oh,
we can
good.
go out for the
Okay.
money when we're ready to go out, because we have not gotten those funds yet. There's no point taking a loan until we need it.
Great.
All right, so moving on. Case 321 loader, that was already done.
Yep.
And that new debt is going to appear in the budget for this upcoming year. Okay, so that'll be completed. Completed. Truck 14, that was to be money that was in the current year budget for reserve.
Mhm.
Truck 1, you want to talk to truck 14 first?
no,
You good?
yeah, truck 14 is what it is. Probably going to be switching out truck 3 for truck 14, but we talked about that.
Yeah, we'll have to talk more about it.
Um,
You want to move on, or you want to discuss that?
Doesn't matter. You want to show?
We'll keep going,
Yeah, and then we can just go back and talk about a couple of,
because there's other issues at play with those. Okay, truck 1. Truck 1 is going to be different. We were originally set to do a ban for truck 1 for the purchase with the plan for this upcoming budget to take a bond for the 2 trucks, truck 1 and truck 2. truck one, and Zach can verify this, it's going to be a lot longer to get. It's not a quick vehicle to purchase.
Yeah, depending on the manufacturer that we go with,
Mhm.
it's going to be at least 6 months to a year before we can take delivery.
Wow. So the lead time is really out there.
So I
Okay,
guess-
long lead time.
So my suggestion to the board, given the lead time on this, to go ahead to go straight to a bond and get truck one and truck two, and maybe with the joint purchase, we can bring down the cost a little
Oh.
since we're buying multiples. And given them it's a year out, it's going to be something, it isn't obtainable, so there's no point taking a ban yet. This is kind of like Southern Wood. You know, do the bonding resolution, have it ready to go,
And then
issue
counts.
the purchase
Okay.
agreement that we're good to purchase it, but it might be a year before we take delivery,
But
so,
we're set up, and then it just kicks in.
correct.
Okay.
I think that's a better way of handling it. It saves issuance costs for issuing to a ban and a bond. It would be better just to issue the bond in that case, given the time frame. If this truck could be purchased in this year, I would say then issue your ban, but it's not even possible to get it in the current year.
And they're back to back.
So when will we do the bond resolution?
That isn't
Yeah.
up to the board. I mean, we
Like,
can
is
do it
there,
in,
I mean, I'm just thinking
I
logistically, like,
would,
is there
I would
any?
have it done and ready to go,
Okay,
so we could go out
just so
to
we're-
put the bond out before bid.
Okay.
How, I know we just put in for the other bond resolution. I guess if we're, at this point, deciding to expand on the amount that we're indebted, then I would just like to, I would personally always check, like, what's our total amount outstanding and how is this affecting the total amount that we owe payments on?
Well, currently, in the upcoming year, we have no bond payment, okay? We won't have a bond payment for Southern Wood until we issue that, and it'll be 1 year out. So we did plan accordingly in the multi-year plan for all these bond issuances, and it would be a separate issuance. So what I need from the board, and again, I would ask this in an another meeting, is permission to go ahead and talk to the financial advisors and get the details that the board needs for this bond resolution.
Where was the original funding? Did we talk about, since this is an imminent cost, our last discussion was also this would be part of the ban, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I just want to make sure, so we did discuss that.
Mhm.
We did,
Yeah.
and we decided the funding, and we put the amounts in.
Okay.
What actually happens, though, might be a little different on the actual budget purpose, because we don't have the payment, so I can't account for a payment that's not there. In the past, I think the recommendation was to put it into a reserve or put it into, I think we put 50,000 into contingency, and as a way of
For vehicle
budgeting for that
for
payment
vehicle
before it
fund.
actually happened.
Yeah, so I would just continue to suggest doing that, making sure that even though the payments may be deferred, that we show the cost of those payments as a reserve funding. And when we get to the reserves, we know that that money's there, or at least it was accounted for.
Right, you won't be able to take the money out of reserves to make the payment. That's the key to understand. But I think you're setting your budget so you can, it's able to handle that payment when it hits.
That's right. So in many respects, you might fund the reserve, or you may simply roll into the next year without funding the reserve and have it there already on the balance sheet. But either way, it's there in advance of the payment rather than waiting around for it.
But this was all discussion that was
Yeah.
planned. The only thing different here is saving issuance costs.
Yep.
And there's no point, because
Yep.
by the time we get to this one, we're going to be behind on the next truck, so we might as
So
well
just
just
do it.
order both at the same time,
And it's, yeah, saves on the fees.
okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I had trouble remembering for a minute that we had already discussed that it was part of the.
Oh, we
ban.
hammered all this out.
Yeah, this was a.
I recall now.
Remind me, Zach, what's the trade-in value of our two trucks, if anything? And this is the net cost, right?
Yeah,
So what are these trucks?
truck one, I think, I don't remember what it's on paper at this moment, but what market value might be between 20 and 35.
Okay.
And probably pretty close to the equivalent for a truck.
And these are $300,000 trucks. And
250, I think.
250, so this number might actually come lower when we get some funds coming in from, this is assuming that the resale is zero, or do you work that in
took the number I was told. What I do is I put in the money into the budget for the sale of the equipment
Got
to
it.
apply.
Okay.
So that's a revenue coming in.
Right.
So,
Would we want to, just as a thought, as we look into next year, take the value of those 2 trucks and show it as a funding source, and then you would introduce general, right, or fund balance, and have that amount that we expect from the sale to be there as a part, rather than just band it all and use the sewer
That's a
fund?
pretty wild variable. I don't know.
I wouldn't count it.
Okay, so just let it be when it
Let
comes in,
it be
it
what
comes
it's
in.
gonna be, let the bill be what it's
Because
gonna
whatever
be.
you
The
get at
revenue will
auction,
come
you
in,
That's right.
get,
it'll
it's,
just be a revenue.
And then based on your fund policy and other things, we'll determine what to do with the money when it
Right,
comes in.
if we end up with a surplus, that's when you can
I
say,
mean-
you know what, we got that extra 30,000, let's throw it back in.
yeah, because when you auction, it's sort of coming in over the transom.
I mean,
that's how
yeah,
it's
so
done.
taking whatever
Yeah.
comes from selling the equipment, putting that into the reserve.
Yeah, or put
Well-
it into the, to be determined later.
Right.
But let it be,
Whatever the board
let it be a
It helps
variable.
cover let me put it this way, it helps cover the fees associated with getting the van, bond, whatever. So there's always.
What I don't necessarily want it to be is unaccounted for money that then goes for projects that we didn't discuss as part of a capital project.
I think that's almost impossible to control unless you, and the reason I'm saying that is it comes in, it's just a general revenue and all revenues apply towards the budget.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay,
That's what I needed.
That's
to
how
hear.
it's recognized. when we-
that's how it's
we-
recognized.
That's what I
because
needed to hear.
it's
So it
just
comes in
Yes.
as general revenue, and
Yeah.
then we
As
allocate
long as
it.
you have
And
a
then we
surplus,
allocate wherever.
as long as you have a surplus, then you can go, okay, you know what?
Mhm.
We had that surplus, we had that money that came in for the sale of the truck, that's good money to move.
But it's accounted for in the budget as part of.
Yeah,
it.
you'll
Okay, great.
see it.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more on that? So we'll be putting that on, as soon as you have the numbers and things, we'll present to the board to go ahead and talk to the financial people.
That's another action item.
That's another action. Okay, the security fence. This was something that was put in reserve, and it's gonna have to be something, an action taken on at some point.
So on this one, my recollection was that this was like a split rail fence between the canal trail and the DPW. Is that correct, or is that? I
I
think that's
think
what we talked about last year.
that's the place to start, but I think the end goal is to,
But this is, I mean, we got $10,000, so we only have money to start, right?
Yeah, no, you're right, that was the starting point, I remember
So
that.
can,
The
so
starting point
that's-
was
I mean,
that.
I feel like if we're saying security fence, that brings to mind like concertina wire images and
Guard
that kind of
tower.
stuff. Not really split rail, so if the starting point that we budgeted for is a split rail fence, can we change this wording to be a split rail fence?
decorative, accessible.
I think it's just a
Really,
split, I
the
mean,
fen- the
that's,
fencing is compatible with what Canal Corp already uses, and they don't really use a split rail per se, it's a, what is it called?
It's a style of split rail.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's a style, it's a
so
style,
I
but
just
it's
feel,
a
I mean, if we
flatter.
can make that wording.
It's just
change,
not your normal
Yeah,
cut.
yeah,
I feel like we're not gonna say like, we're buying a Kubota if we're buying an F-350, right? So we're not buying a security fence, we're buying. a
Okay, so
split
let's
rail
rename
fence.
Split rail.
Thanks.
DPW split rail, there we go.
Okay.
There's a little-
Do you want to use decorative instead, in case it isn't quite split rail per se?
I would, how about Canal Corp fence style?
Sure.
Because that, it will be coordinated with them, because we know they'll approve that.
Yeah.
That was the discussion. Canal Corp fence style.
No,
I don't know.
that's a good
I'm just
style.
making it up.
Can I say something real quick?
Mhm.
I think there was a concern that there needs to be some kind of security fence as well down there.
I think there could be,
There
but
is.
what we've discussed and what we approved was a split rail fence between,
We'll change the name on that, but we do need to discuss
Yeah,
it.
that's another,
So-
that's a continuation of the topic, absolutely.
I have another, so let's say the split rail, the cost of the split rail fence doesn't exhaust the $10,000, then the rest of the money would be spent towards the actual chain link security fencing, right?
I don't think that's what this board has discussed, and that's why I'm being particular about the wording here, because I think that we talked about buying the split rail.
That's where it ended. We never
Yeah,
did talk about it.
that's where it ended.
Okay.
We know
So
that,
even if there's money-
so if there's leftover funding, the board comes back to, the board can redirect it to maybe the additional securing of that area for
Okay.
the fencing, it comes back.
Just so I have some defining.
Yeah, right now, this is a discrete category for the Canal Corp style fence.
Yep, gotcha.
But it sounds like you have an idea for future. So if you do, I would start writing it down and bring it to us
Yeah,
and take a look at it.
Yeah, we're going to be,
Yeah.
bring it back in
I
for
think
the
it was-
budget, yeah.
I think it was 6 or 9 months ago, we were gonna dig that up and relook at what
Right.
was done before and where we wanna go. And,
Mhm.
Right.
yeah, it's been delayed. So we got 10 grand,
Give us your dreams.
split rail next year. We'll see what happens after that. Sure.
So this,
Well, it's also in compliance with the insurance company.
Insurance
Mhm,
terms.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
DC.
so anyway, this is moving to the 25-26 budget to be completed.
Sure.
Okay, so that's the action on that. The utility mapping, that's something that hasn't started yet, but you're hoping in the spring to get
Yeah,
moving
there
on
will be
that.
some-
This budget year, right?
Still hope for this budget year.
Okay.
This is an ongoing budget item,
Thank you.
so
Thank
it's
you.
not a matter of it being, again, this was brought to me, why wouldn't this be a capital project? It's not, because there's one piece here, it's an ongoing budget need, and it's small enough that if it doesn't get done in 1 year, it's getting done the next year, and it just keeps rolling.
yeah, so just so everybody understands, you're going to see this occur again in subsequent years, so it'll keep showing up because we need to keep mapping everything underground.
Okay, so the retaining wall sidewalk restructuring project, that's just changing to removing a tree and sidewalk, because,
Yes, remove the words retaining wall.
Yep.
We do not own that. So it is sidewalk restructuring.
so that's, again, to be completed in the spring. So that'll be done this
That'll,
budget year.
that'll be done, okay.
The furnaces and DPW shop, they were there yesterday.
Those are installed as of now, so they just
Oh, really?
finished up.
So that is completed.
You were without furnaces today until they were done?
We were up without furnaces for a month. Just in like one section
Sector.
of the garage. Okay. Yeah, but it was cool.
How is it?
Nice, they're quiet too.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah,
glad, 'cause they were
So one furnace
so,
ran last night, we kept it at 70 degrees, so only had one installed completely.
oh,
And that actually was able to get that section of the garage up to temperature in which it shut off. So, and it helped for
Okay,
a little while.
great,
So the three
okay.
together should be pretty efficient.
good, thank you.
Okay, so then the shop offices, this was money to put into the reserve to be completed. Again, it's moved to the 25-26 budget year to be completed.
Mhm.
That was just to set up the reserve. So that brings us back to truck 14, and Zach's,
Yeah, so truck 3, I mean, the intent is to replace that one this year instead of truck 14, but the way things are going right now, getting everything spec'd out, and by the time we take delivery of things, I mean, it might actually blend into the next budget year. So,
In terms of the order cycle
yeah,
for truck 3.
yep, for
So-
truck 3, and then also 14 will probably incorporate into it too, so.
Okay, so we're wrapping 3 and 14 together?
Not together,
Wait,
per
what-
se,
how are
but
we
like,
looking at
by the
this?
time we take delivery of truck 3, we'll probably be ordering truck 14 at the same time, so. I would prefer to have truck 3 on hand sooner than truck 14 at this point,
Okay,
because of the deterioration of truck 3. It's becoming, it's sitting at the Van Born Accord waiting on brake line right now, so it's been there for 2 weeks.
okay, so this is moved to,
so my question to you is how soon could you get delivery of the truck?
Kind of depends on what they have in stock, so they're cycling through between the 24s to the 25s at this point, so I'm just waiting on some feedback and getting.
Is it something that can be accomplished within this budget year if the board decides to instead put some money in the reserve to go ahead and purchase?
For truck 3?
Yes.
Yes.
It's gonna be purchased.
This year, it's still intended to
Okay.
be purchased this year.
Well,
But I'm just saying that 14.
we go to contract this year, is what you,
No.
What are we doing?
What was the board's plan for this year was to put 100,000 into
Mhm,
reserve.
yes.
But it sounds like truck 3 has moved up into severe need.
Mhm.
So the suggestion to the board would be, instead of funding 100,000 into the reserve,
Well,
I
just,
think truck 3 was 70,
Yeah, right on
to go ahead and purchase truck 3 and then fund 30,000 into reserve, move the money, so we could get that purchase done considering.
just right up
there's
front,
an
just do
immediate-
it, okay.
It wouldn't be technically it's not a budgeted item, but it was budgeted because we were budgeting the reserve. So it seems silly to put the money into the reserve to pull it
Take
out
it
in
out.
the next week.
Agreed.
Okay,
So it's just a flip flop, I suppose.
So I think if Zach brings the information to the following meeting,
okay, so that's the action item?
yeah.
So then 3 comes on to 24, 25,
Mhm.
and 14 goes on to 25, 26.
Is that what we're hearing? Okay, just so
Yeah.
we can clarify that.
And
Okay.
so then with truck 3 is, would you just simply put it down as, now that we know more when you're updating these sheets, instead of showing it as reserve, will you just show it as general fund?
Yep, we'll show it as general fund,
Yep.
or
And
we'll
then
have a budget amendment.
for next year, truck 14 would show 70,000 general fund or sewer, and then 30,000 reserve, or something like that. effect.
Yes.
Whatever, yeah, it would come out of the. reserve.
However it works out.
Yeah, we'll make those changes.
Yeah, Lily?
I'm sorry, this is
Yeah.
this is the question from the person with the not financial background.
No problem.
Is there a reason why we wouldn't bundle all of the DPW expenses? And if we're doing a bond for the restrooms, why we wouldn't add the furnaces and everything in one bundle? Wouldn't that be a more efficient way of handling it rather than,
But you don't bond furnaces.
Well,
Or
you
not
could,
even-
if you were doing a major upgrade down there and you were going ahead and saying, okay,
Big enough?
we're going to do a major DPW renovation. That renovation's including bathrooms, furnaces,
office.
offices, fencing. You could technically do that. You could make a major DPW project. The board still could do that. But what you have been doing and what,
Mhm.
is still a good practice, if you can afford to pay for something out of the budget, you get it done and you take care of it. The
Okay.
furnaces were
Mhm.
easily budgeted and taken care of. It was not a huge expense, unlike
Okay.
the hall, which is huge number, it was 15,000 for the DPW for that.
Mhm.
Fencing, again, is something the board, playing back and forth with. The bathrooms, that, again, is a big expense, so that is, and then we're not even bonding the bathrooms. Those are coming out of general funds,
And
and
ARPA.
some funds from ARPA
Mhm.
and sewer.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
if you can pay for something, pay for it.
okay,
But if you were doing a huge renovation and it was gonna be a big thing, I would look at a bond, but if you can afford to pay for it, not debt it, pay for it.
I see, thanks.
Okay, any more questions? Oh, 24, 25 continues the next page. I was totally missing the little call. We were having so much fun with DPW. All right, so the first 3 items, the HVAC is completed for the, well, it's not completed. They were supposed to come in today,
Yeah.
but the cold weather kept them away. I don't know why.
But it will be,
Down in our shop.
Were they down at your shop?
oh, okay, so it's in the hopper.
It's in the hopper. They should be coming here soon to complete the project, so that's almost done.
Okay,
Talked to Jen Aaron, she's getting the bid specs ready for the front columns and the new slabs. So that should be coming to the board hopefully in the next couple meetings to go out to bid.
will that be done this year?
It should be done
Yeah, I
this
should
year.
think so.
Yeah, we want to get it into the.
At the end of the
spring.
day, it's not the hugest project.
No, it's
So,
not. the
okay,
hugest.
okay, so it still stays here. All
The
right.
electrical review, there was hope that that would be part of the grant. There wasn't enough money in the grant to cover after you did HVAC and the other 2 larger items. At some point, we need to look at what we want to do with that. So the thought is to move it to 25, 26 and cover it in the next budget year because we really do need to have a solid review, labeling of panels, making sure everything's up to.
Do we get the service panels replaced? They were old, right? We talked about.
There's
that.
some that are old. We do have one new panel that I'm aware of. There's no one new, right?
Yes, there's one really old one and then 3 new ones.
3 newer ones.
Yeah.
I
I
think
don't
the
know
newest
what
one,
the
I
chronological.
think the
order
newer
was.
one is like 8 or 9 years ago. So
Yeah, that's pretty new.
that's
Yeah.
good. But I think the point was to have someone just go through room by room, making sure everything is still okay.
So it doesn't need to be upgraded before the HVAC goes in?
No, we were able, the HVAC, my understanding, someone a lot smarter than me can correct me, the type of system we have uses less
Less
electrical
energy.
power. It's
Okay.
less pull on the
It's more
panels.
energy efficient.
I see,
Yes.
okay.
So we didn't have to do that.
And then therefore we get points for being climate smart and.
Right,
green
at some
energy.
point, if
Yeah.
we add the charging systems and other things, we are gonna have to. look
And
at
we're upgrading the
service.
meeting room, other things will start to kick in. Yeah.
But right now, we didn't have to do that, so I'm putting that to the 25, 26 budget.
Could you remind me on the grant dormitory and the reserve funding here for the ones in green?
Mhm.
The reserve amount is about 90 grand or so. The way we had adopted this those funds were gonna come out of reserve.
Correct.
But had we actually funded the reserves, or do we just have the money and we're gonna do it?
We don't have the money in the reserve yet, we were gonna fund the reserves.
Right, and then pull it out.
Then pull it back out.
But the suggestion is, don't fund the reserves, we're just gonna use
We
it from the
have to
budget.
in this case scenario, because the reserve money is in that one fund.
Is in that one fund, so we're
It's a
using up
transfer
that.
from another reserve
Okay,
that
so that's-
exists.
that's one of the-
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what's confusing, because some are new and some are, we're just trying to
technically,
move
we
over.
could take it out of fund balance and just say 100,000 out of fund balance, because we were putting extra into.
Because we're gonna put extra over there anyway,
You
so.
can take it from there.
Okay, so whichever one is fine by me.
Correct. Take it from fund balance, fund it, and then when the dormitory and everybody's, let me explain dormitory, because I don't think I
Yeah,
have.
let's bring everybody up.
We
to
have the
speed.
grant from the dormitory. You have to jump through a bunch of hurdles. Once you get the grant, get everything settled, get the contract signed. That takes about a year. Then when you get the expenses in and everything, you submit all that to get refunded from the state, and that could take a year to 2 years. So the grants are great, but you have to be able to cover that money until that money comes back to you.
Yeah, you're fronting the funding.
It's almost 100% replacement, but it could be a while out.
Yeah, and actually, the last call with NICOM, they're really trying to shorten that time frame for reimbursements, because it's really tough on municipalities if you're fronting a number of grants, and it's just
Right.
out there. So they're trying to reduce it to 12 months or less. They have yet to hit that mark, but
What is it now?
it can go up to 2
I
years.
Infinite?
I haven't gotten, it's been a long time that I actually got paid back from the dormitory
Wow.
authority. Just getting the grants to contract is a hoop, because you jump through all the steps, you get everything in, and then they go, you did this for me a year ago, I need a new one. So then you gotta submit that, and there's always something. I think South End Wood is finally resolved, it's
Yeah.
gone through all its steps. The hall, it was to the steps, we could go ahead and do the project, but it's still jumping through hoops.
Yeah, Lily.
Given what you are explaining to the board here, regarding the timeframe, when would we put in to this long-term capital plan the proposed improvements to the Shane Place Canal Path?
That is going to be the board's decision when they're
Yeah,
ready
that's a
to go
discussion.
ahead. That grant project,
Because we have to have matching funds, and somehow we have to work that in to the wish list, the
But that's,
budget.
but that's also why we have reserves. So in other words, that's an aspect of reserves, if we have, and why the language is crafted in a way so it's a reserve for infrastructure. That covers a lot. So if we need to front money and we say we have $100,000 in the reserve and we need to front $50,000, we can pull it out of the reserve. Then when we're paid back, it can go right back into the reserve. That's a big thing that Fairport does.
The,
All the time.
to that end,
Yeah.
though, the original upfront, so let's say it's 300 for
Mhm.
300, so we spend 300,000 and they give us 300,000, that means we're spending 600,000.
Correct,
Right.
but if we don't get our 300, that we don't get that money, as it was just explained, sometimes for a
Right.
couple of years, so we have to make,
So what I would suggest is, to the extent that that project is on a near-term horizon to capture that grant, we have to work that cost
Mhm.
into this capital plan. Or the other option is you reach out to the grant and say, hey, we're not ready, we're still working on the DPW, we're still working on
Mhm.
vehicles, can you delay it another year or two? And make sure it stays out there.
There's always, Dorothea's in touch, you're on speed dial with the dormitory, so
I
There's
talked
always-
to the Canalways this week,
Yeah.
and they have everything they need for us for contracts, except something they need from the canals.
Canal
And
Corp.
they haven't gotten it yet. So they're still jumping through those hoops.
Right.
So that's still in process for
what
contract.
kind of a contract?
It's just a general purchase. It's a contract. It's the same thing as dormitory. You have to sign a contract with them for the grant money.
Okay, but it's not on a specific project, is it?
It's on that specific project that grant is for. It's not saying what the project is, it's for the money. It's up to that.
Okay,
It's not
we
dictating.
haven't, good because the board has not yet identified specifically with.
Correct,
the
and
project.
that is the question from, where are you in your planning aspect? Because that's on
Right.
the board to make that decision.
So you're going to grab us, let's say, a hypothetical day sometime in the horizon, the end of 2025 or the end of 2027. You're working on a contract
Mhm.
that would let us get out to some point. And then from there, we work backwards and say, okay, if it's going to be 600,000, what are we doing? Are we float a bond for the whole thing?
How do we front it?
How do we, does it actually get its way into the capital plan? And if so, what does it mean from a budgeting standpoint?
Or does
So-
some of it come out of the reserves temporarily to be refunded back? I mean, there's, in
all
other words,
all these
there's
different things,
different
right?
moving parts of how we could look at that.
Right, so what I would just say is, do you think you'll have an answer before the budgets are adopted this year?
When that grant has to be completed?
Yeah.
As speaking, and this is where I was going, I spoke to her this week because this was a question that
Yeah.
came up in our
In our meeting?
internal.
Yeah,
You have to go to contract by a certain
We
date.
we have to go, no, we have to have the contract she's still working on. She again
No,
followed up with Canal.
I mean, for the project, actually. You keep going, I'm sorry, never mind.
That's
I have a
okay.
different thought on this, but,
Because I asked her, when do we have to have the contract, have the project completed?
right.
We have till December 2027. It's from the
Mhm.
issuance. So at this point, the project has to be completed by December of 2027. So at some point, depending on how long it's going to take to complete the project, putting out the bid, it very well could be, again, a capital project, because I'm going to assume, you're going to have your planning stage. Can we go to them and ask for an extension? That's the question I do need to follow up with her.
Sure.
But she said, we haven't even gotten to contract because we're waiting on Canal.
And they factor that in. I mean, you've negotiated quite successfully with them on, for example, the other repurposing of the grant. Really, it's not hard and fast. They understand there's a lot of moving parts for
So that's how it
municipalities.
stands right now. That's
Yeah,
what she
that's just where it is
relayed to me.
today.
so let's take that as what we know.
Mhm.
And I look at 300,000 and think, I don't want to throw away a $300,000 grant if we can figure out how to get $300,000 into a budget and have it complete by 2027. What that tells me is, we have to make a decision, do we want to introduce it to the capital plan? Frankly, I would drop 150,000 on next year, or this year and next year, and see what it does to the budget, and see if we have to push things out to make it happen. I don't want to just float a bond
Yeah,
and do it.
just start factoring that in.
Right, so personally, I'd put it in there to have the discussion, do we have to kick it out? And if not, then it's, either taxes go up, hypothetically, we use reserve, or we delay things, frankly, right? I don't know who it affects, somebody, right? So I guess we have this looming expense and value out there that everybody sort of was excited about grabbing, and then, people came out, there's things that we could do that are useful long-term for the village. I just want to get that on here and see if it's doable and
Mhm.
make that decision.
Yeah, we have to start somewhere.
So how would you
know.
have this show up in next year's? Do you want me to put like 150,000 into reserve?
It
Into
doesn't.
the infrastructure
So in this case, I guess it doesn't matter to me. If you put 150 here and you put it as general, or you put 150 here and you show it as reserve, either way,
Just show it somewhere.
show
So
it
show it
somewhere.
in the 25, 26.
Show it in this year's and next year's.
Yeah.
That's, obviously, we're still short 300 grand if we have to front it for 2 years, but that's where you can potentially issue a
But
ban or do
I
something.
will remind the board, because you're going to have to get engineering decision and meet and decide what the project is going to look like.
Exactly, and this is where I get hung up. I do not want to move forward with the board approving a project that we have not taken to public hearing, we haven't discussed, in workshops with residents, we haven't done anything. So for us to rubber stamp what was done previously, it hasn't gone to RFP, nothing. So
Agreed.
I'm hesitant to move ahead with that specific plan. I want to
That's why I'm saying put it in reserve.
Put a reserve,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly, fine,
Reserve
yeah.
for infrastructure
Yeah.
is just a reserve for
Yeah, yeah.
infrastructure.
Agreed.
It's
Yeah.
not saying anything. The planning still has to happen. What I want to remind the board is, you don't know how much you're going to spend.
No.
You have up to 300,000 to gain. So the project might be determined that it's a smaller scope project and it's maybe 400. To the planning and the details.
Adjust to our budget. Let's get something.
But it wouldn't hurt to put it into a general infrastructure reserve to be drawn from for any project.
Yeah, I think that's okay, and I mean, even if you look at like the seeker regulations, I believe that before you capitalize the project, you got to do stuff like seeker, and since we can't do secret without knowing what it is.
We
There's
don't know
no
what
way
it is.
that, like legally, we can't fund it yet.
Right.
So
That's why you
100%,
have a reserve, though.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah,
that's,
so
that's
it's
where it
play
really
money,
is, I
yeah,
think
yeah.
it's a practical aspect of how we can treat
Right,
that.
I just need to know how to handle it
Mhm.
when I get to the budget year, when I go to
Reserve.
put it onto the.
so reserve funding, and I would put on these capital plans, something that says Erie Canal improvement,
Yeah, or Shane Place.
right? Or
Reserve
Shane
funding,
Place
Shane Place.
improvement.
Okay. So get in there
Right.
so we can see what
So
happens.
it's saying to the community, we're sinking 300,000 potentially
Mhm.
into Shane Place. We don't know what yet. We're going to fund reserves to do it. Maybe it's the grant, maybe it's a smaller project, maybe it gets trimmed down in the budgeting process, but let's drop it in there.
Yeah, see what happens.
Okay,
first.
just to make everybody aware of time.
Yep.
You know.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. So we're through 24, 25, 25, 26, and starting to show some of these items. I will continue to amend that to show some of the items that we discussed. I think what we need to get is if there's anything that was missed that should be added, that'll be part of next meeting.
Mhm.
I changed it from the discussion from wish list to needs list, because nothing anymore is a wish. Whether it's software or other things for the room, or need for our running of the office to needs, it's all in. So this is just a start, so if you see any changes or anything clarified more, let me know.
Could, is Sutherland Wood going to stay at 26, or is it going to go out to 26, 27?
That
Or
is,
So, yeah, I was gonna say, what?
So-
25, or, I'm sorry, I prefer it to be 25, 26, but it kind of depends on what's going on.
Right.
The development.
And you're talking to them soon about,
I believe so.
okay.
yeah, someone's gonna be something that has to go out for engineering first, it's gonna be a bid, we're working up the scope of that bid to present to the board. And again, when that comes into next year's budget, I think that's gonna be another made into a capital project again,
Sure.
because it's just too big to stand on the regular.
Okay.
It'll start here and move to capital.
Yes.
I like that because I think it's more transparent, it's clearer. This is the project, this is where the money
Right,
is,
right.
and we track it from there on in.
Add the generator in 25, 26.
Yep.
It's still, it wasn't in there right now.
Yeah,
No, I need that number,
Um,
Zach, so.
so that's an action item for 25, 26?
Yeah.
All right, and just real quick, the fiscal years, that's the sheet with all the numbers.
Yep.
So I put in the end of 23, 24. At the end of
Hang on
the
a
year,
second. Sorry. Is that the last page, the very last one?
the very last one, okay? At the end of 23, 24, our unrestricted fund balance was at 59.1%. That was awesome.
Wow.
Very happy to see that. But something that occurred to me as we were discussing the fund balance as it goes forward and as we're looking at putting things into reserves, we have to take into consideration, this is something they don't discuss. As your budget changes, your fund balance number changes, how much you need in there. So if your budget, let's say you're going to spend money out of reserves, you add it to your budget to spend the money and do the money out of reserves, guess what? That increases how much you have to have in fund balance. Yeah,
Mhm.
so as I was playing with numbers, because after what we
See where that's
discussed, my
going.
fund balance went boom, and I went, oh my God. So we do have to take into consideration keeping a little more in the fund balance
So
than putting it into reserve.
Okay, so here's like a dumb question. So can we start with really what we know we need for fund balance and back out everything going?
Yes and no.
I knew there was never. a-
Yes and no. It's a good start, but that's kind of where I was going
Yeah,
with the reserves.
yeah.
And I think we need to, again, although you want to keep 25%, you might want to look at 35% because you need to look at your next budget year. Is it going to be 2.2 million? Then you need 20% of that, whatever your policy is.
Mhm, keeps kicking it up.
So as you go forward, you want to make sure you're keeping your fund balance at that percentage rate. And it's a
Mhm.
little hard because you got to have a little leeway because
Yeah.
your budget isn't stagnant.
Yes.
It's not every year it's going to be 2.2. It might go 2.3, it might go 2.4, it might go
Okay,
down to
so-
2.1. So your fund balance has to adjust with what the budget is.
So the bottom line is the fund balance is proportional to whatever your annual budget is,
Correct.
and.
So if
Lord
you
only
drop it
knows.
too
Yeah,
low,
yes,
if you drop it too low into your next budget, your fund balance could go
yeah,
below what you want it to.
yeah.
So we need to watch that number, is what I'm saying, as we go through this practice. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah, I was
Everybody?
just, I mean, I was just rereading our fund balance policy. 59 is way above what we say it
Correct.
should be. Is that, I know we've got to take corrective action if it's too low. I guess it doesn't,
Oh, she
Like,
loves this number.
is there something about being too high?
I would say the comptrollers wouldn't come in and say that's too high.
Yes.
They would say, that's okay. It's when you look at our sewer, when it's 300%
Yeah.
over, that they go, now that's too high.
Yeah,
Because I think you do have to allow little fluctuation as your budget either grows or,
sure.
goes down or expands or whatever it does.
They're at 10%, right? The comptroller's advice was 10%.
They don't give advice.
They never
They don't.
advise, never.
Okay,
I think our policy is 10 to 15%.
right.
So when I put in numbers and I was playing with things, I went down to 17% and I almost had a heart attack.
For villages, the threshold for low available fund balance, and this is from the comptroller's office, is defined in the fiscal stress monitoring system as less than 10% of expenditures. And total low fund balance is defined as less than 20% of expenditures. That's from the comptroller's office.
What was that last line? Low?
Total.
Low total fund balance is defined as less than 20% of expenditures.
That's a low total.
Yeah.
So this is where
You're gonna have to
35 is the
number.
number that you're comfortable.
Well, we
Yeah.
have our fund balance policy just above that. The village board takes measures to maintain an unrestricted fund balance within a range of 10 to 15% of the most current year's budgeted appropriations.
It's your appropriations that trigger that fund balance number. So that's why when you, like right now, okay, it's great, we'll be at 25%, but if your budget raises enough next year, your fund balance could actually dip below. And that is something, I hate to say it, I didn't take that into consideration because it never hit me
Right.
until I started looking at the sheets. And then I went, oh my goodness.
Mhm.
Okay, so
we need to know.
mechanically, let's say we take $1 million out of a reserve to do something. Now we have a budget of 3.2 million instead of 2.2 million. And the fund balance is 20%. Instead of 500 now, it has to be 600? Is that-
Something, yeah, it reflects on the appropriation.
So what I would say is 20 is the low number, like we don't want to fall below 20, right? You're never going to pull out a reserve half of your revenue, right? I mean, 2 million, you're not going to pull $1 million out unless you're doing really well, which is great. And in which case, I'm not really worried about the fund balance because I got so much money in reserve.
But I'm just saying it's just your general budget, watching it. If we drop that number way too low,
Sure.
it could trigger a problem.
So let's talk about this though. Like on 2 million, 25% is 500 grand. On 3 million, 25% is 750, right? But on 2 million, 75,000 is what? Math in my head, 35, 32 and a half. So if we take our fund balance policy, what is it right now set to?
We're set to 10 to
10 to
15%.
15 range, and then
Which
we've
We
got
didn't, we didn't adopt what we talked about before?
No, we never
No, we
changed.
talked about it,
It
we
was
didn't.
discussion.
We left it as just a safety number in case anything ever happened and it dropped that low.
Yeah.
Personally, I like to see it 25 to 30%. I think the board was more on the 25%.
So 30%, if we fall below our fund balance policy, it requires corrective measures, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so 30% is roughly $660,000, and we've got 1.2 million. That's based on a $2.2 million budget. So I'm comfortable with 30% being our target and having that kind of move forward, and then funding reserves with the rest, which means we could have a decent chunk of money to fund for reserves.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think we're still okay.
Yeah.
I think it's just making sure we're looking at the forecasting of the upcoming.
Need to be aware of
budget.
it.
Yeah,
Just
so
being aware.
30% on 2 million is, 600 grand. And 30% on 3 is 900,000. So hypothetically,
Our budget isn't gonna grow that.
right.
No.
But what I'm saying is if somehow we magically spend an extra $1 million out of reserve sometime in the future, 600 grand is still 20%, we're still above that threshold. Right? It's actually quite, but whatever.
So it makes sense to keep it.
I don't know, I guess when I'm doing, or when you're doing this work, if you want to target a fund balance of around 30%, I'm
See what
reasonably comfortable
works
with
with that.
that and see what we can
I
fund
just like
in
to keep a
reserves.
little leeway in
See
there
what works
because
with it.
knowing every year affects, it's just not, and this is one good thing about looking at the multi-year because it's this effect all the way down the chain.
Mhm.
Okay. So
And
that's
then-
where we are with the multi-year.
Yep, and in many respects, the fund balance is a reserve that you just simply are saying to everybody, we're not going to use.
It's an unrestricted, yeah, it's just unrestricted.
Mhm.
You use it, but.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, you wish.
December financials are here. Again, I printed them because they were done. Everything's looking pretty consistent. There is nothing outrageous. It actually helps when I'm doing the budgeting numbers because it's almost our halfway point. I think January is actually halfway, but everything seems on target. The one concern I did talk to the board about was with the porta potties. because
Yeah,
they
where do
are
we go
gonna
from
be an
there?
issue.
Where do we go?
And we're gonna have to discuss it as we go along. So was there any, I'm sure you didn't have time to review, but they'll be coming back, so just a quickie.
Okay, great, thanks.
And as we're rounding out, the last thing I wanted to discuss was budget meetings. I threw some proposed dates in there. I don't, this is, I think as we've done some of this work ahead of time, I think it's just finessing some things as we go through, that we don't need a ton of meetings. So were these dates good for people, or do we want to look at different dates? I really just don't know.
Are these all Wednesday afternoons?
I chose Wednesdays because I had to pick something.
Yeah, I do kind of have trouble with that because I'm supposed to be out training with our kids, but
Oh,
Even at 4, Justin? 4 is.
yeah,
okay, so,
I mean,
So I would say then, talk to me, what do you guys
yeah,
want to look
what
at?
days work, yeah.
Do you want to look at?
most other
Thursdays?
days, and Thursdays would be all right.
Yeah, Thursdays I can too. I'm away.
Thursdays, my kids are skiing and pretty much the responsible party.
Can we do Tuesdays, since it works on Monday?
You want to do it?
I can look at Tuesdays, it just ends up being, you're pretty much at a meeting every week, and I was trying to eliminate some of that, but I
I
can,
think we've done that before. I think we've done
We've
that
done
on
it
Tuesdays.
before.
Sometimes we've met prior to the
Yeah, and then
board
just
meeting.
go into the
starting.
meeting.
4 to 5, I mean, this is a pretty concise, this is
Yeah.
faster than it was last year, it's pretty
Yeah.
concise, we know.
Yeah,
we're
so
looking
many pieces are in place.
Right.
And now it's just, oh, do we move A to B kind of
Exactly.
stuff.
Everybody's got sort of the skill set
Yeah.
down and you're working it nice. I don't know, I guess I would say let's try to do 4 to 5.
I'm
So
fine with
we're going to
that.
say Tuesdays? 4 to
Tuesdays,
5?
so then I would look at changing these by one date, like
Okay.
February 4th.
Yeah.
The 25th. The 18th, the 8th,
The 18th is, yeah, that's the.
Nope,
that's election, isn't it?
okay.
Well, that's out.
Everybody's like, no, huh?
Let's leave that at the 19th,
Yeah, would that be?
just, and we can look at it,
Yeah.
we can look at it. The
Because we'll
8th
be
and
further
20th,
along anyway, I know that's,
Yeah,
Hard for
that's
you.
fine.
The 4/8 is
the
a
8th and
meeting
the
already.
22nd are already board meetings.
Right,
Yeah,
So
so we would
it's-
meet ahead of that.
No, we wouldn't have to. The 8th would be the
Fine,
public
that's our
hearing.
public
Oh,
hearing.
yeah,
Okay.
these are the adoptions.
Yeah.
These are
Okay,
the
got it.
public hearing, and the
The public hearing
22nd,
on the- see where
the
Got it.
board
yeah.
has never adopted the budget at the public hearing. It is always an option,
Yeah, you
Always
can
keep
just
that in
adopt it
mind.
that night.
but I'm just putting the 22nd.
Okay, so you'll send out the new.
In other words, the 22nd is in there because that's kind of the last day.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
it just is a backup essentially, because we could even adopt it.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, we could add dates if we feel we need them, but I think pretty much everything's been outlined already for this year. So
Mhm.
I think it's really me just punching in the numbers, and to be honest, I've already got most of the general in. I started with sewer today,
Yeah.
and we'll have more detail. So next meeting, I'm needing needs list, so whoever, Zach, anything you need, if there's board projects that you guys are looking for and want to see in the upcoming year, I need that.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll start with the general budget
Okay,
review.
action is board members provide needs list.
Could,
Yeah, and if you can get that to me the Friday beforehand,
Okay, what date is that, please?
I'm looking.
Thank you.
I do have one, I guess it could be a capital project, we talked about it once before, I think we all sort of agreed, but it's the idea of having somebody come in and doing a needs assessment and a long-term plan for the DPW, and what are we actually doing here with this building for a very long period of time. I know we're investing in the bathroom, pretty pricey bathrooms, on a per annum basis if we end up doing something different in 10 years, but maybe the plan's 15, right? So we're doing some nice improvements, the question now becomes, does that structure remain as such And the long-term plan to that, I don't know what a consultant's going to cost, but that affects things like fencing decisions and other decisions, the arboretum and investments there. So personally, I'd like to see something like that in either the budget or
The
the
multi-year.
multi-year.
Okay. That would be January 31st, so have any of that to me by
Okay.
noon.
One other quick just question, if I could. It has always been hard for me, because the software doesn't do it, to see where we started the year and what we said we were going to do, and where we ended the year, and then what are we planning on next year. And so what ends up happening inevitably, we're looking at this budget based on what we ended this year at, not really understanding the difference in what we thought we were going to do to where we are.
Well, we're also doing it before the year ends. Anyway, I mean, we're still trying to move.
Right. I guess what I'm trying to see, like, the year over year, these
You
relative.
will see year over year, and those are the Excel sheets I send you.
Yeah.
And those Excel sheets are from what we planned 12 months ago, or based on where it is now
It gives
after all the transfers that you do?
it shows prior to
It
transfer.
shows all the prior to transfers.
It shows,
Okay,
Oh, I see.
adopted, and it shows what we've expended so far.
okay, and so the adopted is the original, they don't include the transfers, because sometimes I get a little
No,
curious as
it
to
doesn't include the transfers, it
Okay.
just includes what we spent.
Great, thank you.
Okay, but it also includes 21, 22, 22, 23, so you have.
And it's all what was adopted on the original, not the end of the year
No,
transfers?
the others are on the end.
Okay.
The other ones show where we ended the year. The only one that shows is adopted is your current budget year and what you've spent so far. And then the next line is what I'd like to see budgeted for the next year.
Okay. My only closing comment is I appreciate all the work. I know you put a ton of work into this, and everybody that's gotten to the point where this process seems much more, just better.
Yeah.
Just better.
Oh, it's so much better.
Great work.
Yeah, really great.
So
Thanks,
if there's anything
Dorothea.
you want to see or need, I'm starting to get the estimates in from
Yeah.
everybody. I sent out my notices to all our vendors that give me estimates. Some are coming in a little higher, unfortunately, but it's what it is. So we'll
Okay.
see all that next time.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. I make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
Trustee Lickett.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Palmer.
Hi.
Motion passes. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank
Thank you.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
And thanks, Zach.